I recently made this video about the importance of Africa seriously considering nuclear power as a potential replacement of fossil fuels. If you haven't watched that, it will be linked in the pop-up banner. But as I was doing my research, I came across this news about how one country in Africa has been the source of a large percentage of the uranium that is used in France and has received absolutely no economic benefit from the mining that has been taking place there. This country is called Niger. It's found in West Africa, and I know they speak French there, and maybe this video may not get to them, but I wanted to just highlight this issue and help us to understand what is happening and maybe what can be done to help Niger. Without getting too political, I think it's important for you to understand that since independence, many of the countries that were colonized by the French have never really gotten the independence that they were promised. French still controls a lot of what happens there, and what we're going to talk about today is just part of the problem. And maybe I will talk about the other parts in future episodes if that is something you'll be interested in. Please let me know in the comments. For over 40 years, a French mining company by the name Cominac has been extracting the uranium ore from this small landlocked country called Niger and transporting it to France for refinery and use in their many nuclear power plants. France gets more than 70% of the energy that they use from nuclear power, and they get nearly 100% of the uranium that is used in these reactors from this one small country in Africa called Niger. Niger has a population of about 17 million people, and up to 60% of its population lives below the poverty line of earning less than $1 a day. It has a life expectancy of, get this, only 45 years. But despite this, Niger is known as the uranium capital of Africa, being the fourth largest producer of the uranium ore, making up to 7.5% of the global production of uranium. But despite this abundance of resources, the people of Niger have received hardly any benefit, with many of them having suffered great losses and misery as a consequence of uranium mining in their neighborhood. Though Niger got its independence in the 1960s, the neo-colonialism games played by France have given the French power over the uranium resources that are found in Niger, giving the state-owned power company Areva a monopoly over the uranium mines of Niger for over 40 years. Despite the massive resources that are mined from the country, the surprising thing is that uranium production has only contributed 5% to the national GDP of Niger. A surprising figure considering that more than 50% of all the uranium mined in Niger is used in France. In fact, what many people don't know is that 3 out of 4 light bulbs in France are lit using electricity produced through the nuclear power plants that get the uranium that they use directly from Niger. This small West African country is literally keeping the lights on in France. Just this year, in 2022, the companies that mine the uranium ore from Niger have announced that they are going to close all their mining activities on 31st of March 2022, saying that the mines are no longer profitable. After mining the ore from that country for more than 40 years, they are abandoning Niger in a deplorable state, only offering to give compensation to a few workers who are working in the uranium mines. Let us look at all the ills that uranium mining has brought upon the people of Niger. Many of the pastoralist communities in Niger, like the Tuareg, have complained that their water sources and even their soils have been contaminated by the dust that was produced from the uranium ore mining. Some of the workers who used to work in the mines have told stories of handling the radioactive materials with their bare hands and literally breathing in this poisonous dust, with many parts of the country, especially on the northern side, relying on the uranium mining for their economic output. The unequal partnership between the mining companies that are controlled by Areva and the contribution of the corrupt leaders of the country has led to a situation where, despite being endowed by great resources, the people in the country are suffering, not just because of the deplorable economic situation, but because of the health risks that are being brought about by exposure to radioactive dust from the uranium ore mining. And do you know the surprising thing about all this? 90% of the people of Niger do not even have access to electricity, with many human rights activists saying that most people in the country don't even understand how important the uranium that is found in their own land is. In 2014, the organization called Greenpeace conducted a scientific survey of the environment around the uranium mines found in Niger. And despite the research team being partly funded and controlled by France, their results were surprising. The uranium contamination found in the soils and the water sources that surround the mining regions were 4 to 5 times the recommended amounts by the World Health Organization. Despite there being evidence of the radioactive gas called radon being dissolved in the waterways, these poisoned waters are still being used to date by the people of this country. In 2005, a group of lawyers from the international network called CEFRA reported that the mines had failed in their social responsibility because they did not inform the workers about the health effects of the exposure to the radon gas in the mines. They also failed to give them basic protection, with many of the workers ending up dying from different kinds of cancers, of course without any medical assistance from their employers. In fact, the villagers around the mines have reported an increase of strange diseases in the population, with many of them recalling never having seen such things in the history of the country before the mining began. High death rates, miscarriages, and the birth of deformed babies have become quite a common occurrence in the country. Even the domestic animals in the villages surrounding the mine have also experienced an increased rate of birth deformities, of course as a result of the radiation produced from the mining activities. Doctors in the hospitals established and run by the mining companies have seen an increase in various diseases, including diseases in the skin and the breathing systems of the people living around the mines. But the mining company Areva has maintained that the diseases that have been witnessed are not as a consequence of the mining, but rather as a consequence of these people living in the desert. Doctors have also reported that the cases of respiratory diseases, birth defects, leukemia, and different kinds of cancers are several times higher than those reported in other parts of the same country. Over 3,000 kilometers away, France enjoys the status of being a huge superpower that produces most of its energy from the renewable source of nuclear, while the people of Niger are left abandoned by their government, unable to even meet their basic needs. I pose this question to you: who is winning and who is losing? Who are the biggest benefactors of the resource that Africa has? Think about it for a moment. If you would like to understand the effects of radiation on the human body, I made a video all about why bananas are radioactive. You can find it linked on the pop-up banner. And if you like what we do here at The African Scientist, please subscribe and like this video so that YouTube can show it to more people. Of course, you can also support us by buying us a coffee using these two links that will also be left in the description. If you'd like to go deeper into this topic, as always, I will leave all my sources linked below as well. Thank you so much for coming along and for your constant and continuous support. This is The African Scientist, science from an African perspective.